In 1898, a man stood on a factory floor with a stopwatch. He wasn't there to fix a machine. He was there to fix you. His name was Frederick Winslow Taylor. And before he was done, he would change how every job on Earth feels. Not what the job pays, not what it makes. How it feels in your body every single day you go to work. Taylor wasn't a tyrant. He didn't own the factory. He was an engineer. A mechanical engineer, obsessed with one question. How much waste is hiding inside a human body at work? In 1898, Bethlehem Steel hired him to find out. 600 men worked there, shoveling coal and ore by hand. Each one brought his own shovel from home. A small shovel for iron ore, a huge one for ash. Nobody had ever asked, is there a right amount to lift? Taylor decided to find out. With a stopwatch and a notebook, he stood behind workers all day, every day, timing every motion, not their results, their motions, the lift, the swing, the pause. He found the answer in pounds, exactly 21 and a half. That was the perfect shovel load, not 1 pound more. So he designed 15 different shovels, one for every material, a light shovel for ash, a heavy one for ore, all built for 21.5 pounds. The result was almost unbelievable. The same work that once took 500 men now took 140. 360 men gone, replaced by a number. But this was only the warm-up. Taylor's real obsession wasn't shovels. It was a man named Schmidt. That wasn't his real name. Taylor changed it in his writings. His real name was Henry Noll, a laborer who carried pig iron. Each bar weighed 92 pounds. He carried them onto rail cars. On a normal day, a man like Henry moved 12 and a half tons. Taylor watched him, timed him, studied every motion of his arms. Then he told Henry exactly when to lift, when to walk, when to rest. Not whenever Henry felt tired, whenever the stopwatch said so. You pick up the pig iron and you walk. You sit down and you rest. By the end of the day, Henry had moved 47 tons, almost 4 times what he moved the day before. Taylor called this a triumph, a scientific miracle of efficiency. He never once asked if Henry's body could survive that pace for years. But this was still only the surface, because Taylor didn't just study what your hands do. He decided your hands shouldn't be trusted to think at all. He wrote it plainly. All possible brain work should be removed from the shop. The thinking belonged in an office, upstairs, away from the worker. A planning department would now decide every motion in advance on paper. The worker's job was no longer to think, only to obey the card. Taylor had a phrase for workers who paced themselves naturally. He called it systematic soldiering. He believed it was a kind of theft, workers slowing down on purpose, stealing time from the company. So every motion now had to be accounted for, timed, owned. And Taylor wasn't the only one chasing this dream. A husband and wife team took it even further. Frank and Lillian Gilbreth. They tied small lights to workers' fingers and hands. Then they took long exposure photographs in the dark. The lights drew glowing lines, mapping every motion a hand made. They called this a chronocyclograph, a map of wasted movement. Every unnecessary curve of a wrist was now visible and erasable. The goal had a name, the one best way. Just one, for everyone. Not your way, not the way your body naturally moves, the one way that the stopwatch approved of. But here is the part Taylor's fans don't usually mention. Workers hated it, not all of them, but enough to fight back. In 1911, machinists at the Watertown Arsenal walked out on strike. The reason, a man with a stopwatch, timing their every move. The strike was loud enough to reach the United States Congress. Congress launched an investigation into Taylor's entire system. They called it dehumanizing. They questioned if a man could be reduced to numbers. Taylor testified for hours, defending every motion he'd ever measured. Congress eventually banned stopwatch time studies in government work. But the ban came too late. The idea had already escaped the factory, because by then, Taylor had written it all down in a book. The Principles of Scientific Management, published in 1911, it spread far beyond steel mills, into offices, into schools, into hospitals. Lenin himself praised Taylor's methods for organizing Soviet factories. Henry Ford used Taylor's timing logic to build the first moving assembly line. The stopwatch had become the quiet architect of the modern workplace. And here is where the story stops being history, because you have felt this exact pressure. Maybe today. If you've ever worked in a warehouse, you may already know the feeling. A handheld scanner tells you exactly where to walk and how fast. A countdown clock ticks while you search for one single. This isn't a metaphor. This is a real, patented tracking system. In 2018, a major retailer patented a wristband for warehouse workers. It uses radio signals to track exactly where your hands are. It can buzz your wrist if your hand drifts toward the wrong bin. 107 years after the shovel, the tool just got smaller. Researchers even have a name for it now. Digital Taylorism. Same logic as Henry Noll's pig iron, just measured in clicks, not pounds. Workers are still timed, still scored, still compared to the one best way. Except now, the stopwatch doesn't blink. It never looks away. It lives in an app, in a badge, in a wristband you can't take off during a shift. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Taylor believed he was being kind. He thought he was helping workers. He promised higher pay for following the system exactly. And for some workers, for a while, that promise was even true. But the system never needed Taylor to keep running. It only needed the watch. Taylor died in 1915. The stopwatch did not retire with him. It simply changed hands. Engineer to manager. Manager to algorithm. So here's the question underneath this whole story. When you feel rushed at work, when a task feels timed to the second, that feeling has an exact birth date. 1898, a steel yard, a shovel. It was never really about shovels or wristbands or scanners. It was about one idea, that your body's rhythm cannot be trusted, that somewhere a stranger with a stopwatch knows your pace better than you do. You didn't imagine the exhaustion. You didn't imagine the clock in your head. It was designed, measured, patented, sold as progress. And it worked exactly as intended. That's the part nobody tells you. You were never failing to keep up with the job. The job was built on purpose so that no human pace would ever feel like enough.